and gentlemen, David Letterman.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dave Letterman. And if you're anything like I am, and by the way, that seems pretty unlikely, when you hear the words Hall of Fame, you think of Cooperstown, New York, Canton, Ohio, and the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. What a shrine this vine-covered edifice really is when you start to think about it, you know? I'll keep my remarks brief because they have to load in the auto show when we're done here tonight. And my earliest memories of television, I was a small boy in a room in my home, and I would sit in front of an old black and white television. I think it was an RCA or GE. And the truth of the matter is I could sit there hour after hour after hour and just laugh and laugh and laugh. You ever laugh till your sides actually ache from laughing so much? Maybe it hasn't happened here tonight, but it could. And I remember this very clearly, as if it were yesterday. One evening, my mom came into the room where I was seated in front of the television set, and she said, "Dave, why don't you turn that thing on?" So I turned the television set on, and ladies and gentlemen, I began to laugh even harder because the face on the screen was the man who was one of the most creative, original, comedic minds of our time. It was also the face of a man who has meant a great deal to me personally and professionally, Steve Allen.
Steve Allen was born on December 16, 1921 in New York City. His father and his mother were both vaudeville performers. Dad was a singer straight man known professionally as Billy Allen, and Mom was an excellent comedienne called Belle Montrose. In the course of growing up, young Stephen was a student at 16 different schools, including 5 high schools and 2 colleges, which, by the way, is still a record. Mother and son eventually settled in Arizona, where Steve spent 2 years at Arizona State Teachers College, and in 1945, after a stint in the United States Army and time at radio station KOY in Phoenix, Steve traveled to Los Angeles to seek his fortune in big-time radio. It was at KNX that he created and starred in a half-hour music talk show. The show expanded to an hour and was the most popular, and some say, funniest nighttime show in Los Angeles radio history. But it was another show that really established Steve Allen as a true pioneer and a household name. The Tonight Show, which Steve created, began locally in New York in 1953 and went on the NBC network in 1954, opening up the late-night time period and changing the viewing habits of a nation. Thank goodness. Steve introduced many new faces on that show, including Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet.
Good, splendid.
Now when they
And Andy Williams.
grow stormy and lonely for me.
In 1956, Steve added to his already ambitious schedule by taking on the Sunday night primetime Steve Allen Show. It went head-to-head against ratings giant The Ed Sullivan Show and ended up neck-to-neck with him for the next 3 years. On that show, Steve reached into his bottomless well of humor and came up with hundreds of wild and wonderful premises and characters.
Question man, this answer reads, that's in the belfry. The question?
Question is all right, Tex. Where is Masterson hiding?
He also uncovered a remarkably diverse group of peculiar people who would become individually famous as a result of a segment of the show called Man on the Street.
Well, sir, we'll find out now as we meet our first man in the street. Here he is.
Load the banana boat all night long. Pick up the banana.
Gordon,
Pick up the bananas. Until I wanna go.
Gordon, listen to me. What do you think of calypso music?
I hate it, Slim.
What do you like best about spring, sir?
Well, I just composed a little poem about it. Would you like to hear it?
Uh-huh, sure.
Okay. Roses are red. Well, that's a general idea.
Do you have a telephone?
Yes.
Well, good. Are you listed in the phone book?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Fine. Now, if you wanted to call your number, how would you go about it?
Well, I wouldn't call my number.
Why not?
I know I'm not home.
Yes, that's a very big pearl. What kind of an oyster did that come out of?
A very unhappy one, Steve.
Do you have a retail outlet here in Hollywood?
No, I have an emotional outlet here in Hollywood.
How do you do, sir? And what is your name?
My name, Jose Jimenez.
Oh, yes. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you.
If you really want to know what's happening, if you want to know the score, never mind about the 6 o'clock news, just head right out the door. Conduct yourself a little personal poll with a who and a where and a why.
Do just like Steve Allen did. Interrogate the average guy.
On your feet, too sweet, go and meet the man on the street. The man on the street, the major information, he's the man you should meet.
We all were as anonymous as anyone around us.
Until Steve Allen took his microphone outside and found us.
The man on the street, the man on the street. Just take your notes, we'll give you quotes that you can repeat. We're very grateful for that faithful stay on his feet. When he stopped to chat with the man on the street.
And the question for the man on the street tonight is, how do you feel about Steve Allen being inducted into the Hall of Fame? And here is our first questionee, Gordon Hathaway, the original yuppie, also known as Mr. Louis Nye.
Hi-ho, Steve Areno. Oh, if it were up to me, I'd give you a Clio, a Tony, an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, a Pulitzer, a Christopher, a Peabody, and a Purple Heart. Because purple is my favorite color. You deserve them all, Mr. Everything.
Mr. Dayton Allen, why should Steve Allen be in the Hall of Fame?
Well, a friend of mine whispered into one of my ears, "Why Steve Allen?" I answered back by mouth, "Why not?" After 37 years, Steve knows everything about television. In just 4 days, he fixed my set.
Mr. Bill Dana, now, and the shy Latino. You remember him. What's his name?
My name, Jose Jimenez. I'm glad you like my name. I got to say, I don't think Steve Allen should be in the hall. I think he should be allowed in here like everybody else so we can tell him how much we love him.
Now, let's ask Pat Harrington's alter ego, Guido Panzini.
I was there in Italy when Steve Allen shot the hole-in-one
on the 14th hole at the Verona Golf and Country Club. That is a very, very famous hole, and that is why Steve Allen should be in the Hall of Fame.
Now here's the one and only Mr. Gabe Dell.
Good evening, Steve. Hello, I've always had a warm heart for you, Steve. You see, he is no fly-by-night entertainer. No. Show business is in his blood, and it's the best.
Mr. Tom Colston, how do you feel about this honor?
I remember Steve Allen. He was always asking me my name, and I would say... Anyway, I'm happy to say this award is well-deserved, and this group should be proud to honor such a memorable guy as...
A final opinion now from the stout-hearted Mr. Don Knotts. Don, are you nervous?
No. Why should I be nervous to be here honoring Steve Allen tonight? Steve's the one who should be nervous. I'm driving him home after the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Nice job, gentlemen. And I think we could all watch Gene Rayburn dance all night. I just, the way that man moves, well. And now, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Steve Allen saga. Next, the man and the legend.
Human teabag time. Here we go.
In the period from 1959 through 1974, often called by media historians the brass age of TV comedy, Steve Allen's contribution stood out like an original in a sea of carbon copies. Under many different titles and auspices, the entertainer continued to present his own unique brand of wit, humor, and spontaneity.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, tea is served.
But how do you feel about sex on television?
Are you serious?
Never more serious.
Well, I would just say this. I think you'd have to be awfully careful of the antenna. That would be my... But mainly in the news tonight, another crash, a freeway mess, another coup in Bangladesh.
Steve has constantly pursued many avenues of expression, two of the most prominent being writing and composing. For 20 years, Steve had nurtured an idea for a series featuring various characters from history conversing in their own words on a variety of subjects. And in 1977, the program finally reached the public on the PBS network. It was called Meeting of Minds. Steve is the first one to admit the series, which won both the Peabody and Emmy Award, would not have been possible without the outstanding conceptualizing, writing, and acting abilities of his wife of long-standing, Jane Meadows. Recent years have found Steve active as ever, hosting numerous specials and syndicated series devoted to comedy and music, and bringing his on-camera skills to the production of a new series based on one of his most famous songs, The Start of Something Big.
As with any performer in the public eye for such a long time, there are moments that we remember, images that we recall with affection that kind of sum up the person in the spotlight. And my most vivid impression of Steve Allen is one of grace, dignity, complete control, and dazzling mastery of a situation that I would like to share with you folks now.
Good evening, this is your old Indian sportscaster. Your old stupid jerk Bill Allen bringing you
Bringing you, how are you? The complete sports roundup in the world of sports for all you jerky sports out there in sports land. Well, what's new in sports? I'll tell you what's new. The 1958 ouch baseball season is getting underway with the annual... Good night, folks. The annual spring... All right, here we go. Now... Where this good. All right, here we go. The annual spring training warm-up. The big league teams are all at the spring training headquarters around the country. Let's see what's happening.
So for his remarkably facile mind and quick wit, for his outstanding contributions towards the creation and development of new forms of TV programming, for the legacy of laughter and nurturing of new talent, and for the deep-seated and active interest in matters of social, political, and intellectual consequence, the Television Academy is proud to induct into its Hall of Fame Mr. Steve Allen.
Thank you very much, and David, I'll get you for this. I appreciate it very much. It's taken about 40 years to live through the professional experiences which my friend David Letterman has been kind enough to refer to tonight, and now I am allotted a minute and a half to say thank you. It would take at least an hour and a half to properly express gratitude to all of those who have made such important contributions to the body of my work, or the work of my body, or whatever it is I'm talking about. But I must thank first, those wonderfully funny guys that you've just seen. Louis Nye, Tom Poston, Gabe Dell, Don Knotts, Dayton Allen, Pat Harrington, Bill Dana, and our friend Gene Rayburn. They were just terrific. And one of the reasons the shows we worked on were so funny is that each of us was genuinely amused by all the others. And we loved each other. We had fun together, on or off stage, and we still do. They, and our writers, of whom there were dozens over the years, were all major league practitioners of the art of comedy. And the shows we did, like those of Milton Berle, Jackie Gleason, Sid Caesar, and others, were programs you could watch with your children. A certain French cardinal of the 16th century, the 18th century rather, when asked what he had done during the Revolution, said, "I survived." Survivors in any field eventually come to seem part of the national family, I suppose. But one survives because one has been permitted to do so. So we survivors are grateful for the welcome that you all have for so long a time extended. I wish there were time to thank all of the production people who have made such significant contributions to the early show, the early gang, Bill Harback, Dwight Hemian, Nick Vanoff, and the dozens of others. And I thank Jane, of course, not just because I married her, although that's not a bad idea either, but because her support, her sound editorial judgment, and her talent have so often made a crucial difference. There are so many more important components to the drama of modern life that it would be perfectly understandable if, a week or so from now, those of you watching around the country were not able to recall the names of all 7 recipients of the Television Academy Special Citation. But whether you remember this or not, I will not forget it. And for that, I thank all of you, as I thank our dear friends, Steve and Edie, for wanting to be here tonight. Thank you.